So as a good American boy, I grew up playing with toy soldiers, and I even made toy soldiers. My father got us some molds like this, and you would pour lead, molten lead, into these molds to create these soldiers. The soldiers that I grew up with were always in combat, and they never were wounded. And I played with the soldiers, and then later on I was a soldier. And when I was a soldier, it was real. I wasn't fantasizing about it. And so in reflecting back on that, after I came back from war, I was in Vietnam. Ever since, I have been dealing with the consequences in my life, in my head. And so I've been working for over 50 years on dealing with this in one way or another. And my photography has evolved into this work using the toy soldiers. I stumbled across soldiers like this in an antique show, and I was fascinated by the fact that after World War I, which was the war to end all wars, or they called it the Great War, these soldiers were made. This is way before my time. And I found out that between that period, between the big wars, 1 and 2, they made these soldiers, and they included wounded soldiers. And that was the trigger for me to start exploring this. And so we have not only wounded soldiers, we have nurses, we have medics, and in my head, I can't go back and think about what I was thinking as a child when I'm playing with soldiers, but my images are using these toys, and I'm trying to put them in semi-realistic situations that might be what's in the child's head when they're playing with them. The thing for me that really makes a difference is with wounded soldiers, how are they dealing with this in their heads? What did they feel about it when they had a soldier that was on a stretcher? I have a soldier on a stretcher here. I've come to the conclusion that after World War I, they realized the consequences of the war and how harmful it was. And so children were aware of this. The thing that also, it isn't in this photograph, but in many of my other ones, I include soldiers that were photographers. And they have their cameras. In this one, I even put a little light bulb in there for when I stage it, I can turn the bulb on. And I was a forward observer for the artillery in Vietnam. And so we have forward observers that have binoculars. And so I'm putting myself in a lot of these pieces that I do, but the nurses were so important in trying to save the lives of the wounded soldiers. And so this one was a present given to me, and we have a Pieta type pose here with this trench angel. The nurses were called trench angels, and our wounded soldier. I don't know how a child in 1924 would be thinking about this when they had this soldier. And I think about how after World War II, the soldiers didn't get wounded anymore. My soldiers didn't get wounded. G.I. Joe never gets wounded. And so do we play these war games without thinking of the consequences of it, because for me, they never go away. And so I've worked in peace movements and other ways to try and address what are my concerns about the costs of this war. I'm considered a disabled veteran. I have PTSD because it's not going away. I'm caught up in this. It's just more dealing with the world as it is and retreating back into what I did as a child. I have other photographs where I have the BB gun that I had as a child. Do we give these toys to our children these days? I have nephews that play with guns and all these video games that are out there. Do they really make a difference? I don't know. I just know that I was sucked into the vortex of war and can't get out of it.